Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can enhance a grenade explosion or really any explosion in your video game montages. We'll use this Rogue Company clip for the example. So first what I like to do is put a marker on where the explosion starts. Now I'm going to look up the effect camera lens blur and I'm going to add that to my layer. First thing I need to do is check the box repeat edge pixels. And now we're going to play with the value of the blur. So let's change it back to 0, and right before our explosion I'm going to keep a keyframe or set a keyframe of 0 right before the explosion. Now a few frames into the explosion, I'm going to move a few here, it's very short. I'm going to change the value from 0 to either a 5 or an 8. It really depends what you like and what you're going for, and playing with it, each clip's a little different. Then a few frames later, I'm going to set another keyframe back down to 0, just so it turns on and off, and the blur happens pretty quickly because I want it to happen right when it explodes and kind of fade away, and that's our first effect. Second is I'm actually adding a dust overlay. Now I have paid for a lot of dust overlays, but for you, you'll have to Google your own, say dust overlay effect, stuff like that. Usually it'll look like this black clip here with some dust on it. I'm going to place that over top, and I'm going to change the blending mode to screen to get rid of all the black. With that layer, I'm going to press T to bring up the opacity, and I'm going to copy the positioning of the keyframes from the blur effect. I'm going to have it turn off and on. So basically, well, I'm going to have it turn off, on, and off. So I'm going to have the beginning keyframe, the first one at 0. Then the next keyframe I'm going to have either between 50% or 100%, just so it turns on and you can kind of choose your own strength, what you like. Then the last keyframe to 0, like I said, is going to turn off and on with the blur. And you just make sure this is above the blur. So while it blurs out, you can see the dust particles more clearly. Now that we have that, we're going to add new adjustment layer, and we're going to find the effect transform. Now what we're going to do is within our transform effect, we're going to play with the scale keyframes. This is not the actual scale of the layer, but the keyframes that say scale within the effect. That's very important. Before the explosion, I'm going to set a keyframe at 100. During the explosion, I'm going to have it scale up to say 115. Again, you can play with it, but this is what I set for this one. Then a little while later, I'm going to have it go back down to a value of 100. That way, as the explosion hits, it kind of scales up and scales down. And you copy how I do it here. Now press U on your layer to bring up all the keyframes, and you can see all 3. Select them or highlight them and press F9, which will make them easy ease, meaning they'll fade in and out. Once you have that, keep selected on those keyframes and open up your graph editor and follow along what I do here. Basically, I'm playing with the handles or kind of curved part of the value of this graph, and I'm making it so it whips on and whips off, so it's more aggressive with the explosion. And now see how it looks. If it's not what you like, go back in and alter it a bit more, which is what I did here, until you get a nice whip on, whip off with a nice speed and pace that you really like. Now we're going to add some more effects to the same adjustment layer that has our transform. I'm going to type in wiggle, and I'm going to grab the effect wiggle position, or at least the preset wiggle position and wiggle rotation. And from here, we're going to really create a fake camera shake as the explosion happens. So what I'm going to do is for the wiggle speed and wiggle amount on both the rotation and the position, I'm going to set a keyframe of 0 right before the explosion. So that's 4 keyframes at 0. You can see here, follow along on the screen. And go several frames where the explosion ends and just add another keyframe of 0. That way you already have it like an on and off point. And then let's go back. Now let's back up to where the explosion is, at least the height of the explosion, and copy these values that I use here. For position, I changed the speed to 2 and the amount to 11. For my rotation one, I changed the speed to 1 and the amount to 2. You can play with it like I said, but this is what I used in this example here. That way the shake goes on and off as it explodes. So we got a nice looking effect, but we're just going to add one more thing. So add a new adjustment layer on top of our old one. Look up the effect glow, and grab the glow and place it on our new adjustment layer, and change the glow threshold to around 250. That's a nice one there, so everything's kind of glowing. Our goal here is to have it fade on and off with the explosion, just like everything else, but instead of using the actual values within the glow effect, I'm going to click on the adjustment layer and play with the opacity of it. So press T to bring up the opacity before the effect happens. So frame 1 before the explosion, have it set to 0 as the explosion happens, so move several frames over and play with it here. I find 100% is too strong, sometimes 50% is too weak, but you have all the control in the world. I think on this one I went between 70 or 80%. Then several frames later, or quite a while later, I have it fade back to 0. And these are all the changes I do, which are actually super simple, fast, and easy to just make an explosion not only have a bit more of an impact, but make the editing a little nicer. I find the dust is really a nice little addition to it, And if you have your camera blur effect, the faster the better, just so it kind of looks like the camera's freaking out as it hits. And all combined with the camera shake and everything, it just feels nice. So hopefully if you guys want to step up your grenade explosions or really any explosion in your montages, this is a nice, simple, easy way to just add a little style to it. So if this video helped you out or you thought it was interesting, a thumbs up means a lot. It really helps out my videos, shows you guys want more, and I'll catch you next week for another tutorial. Thanks guys.